as a parent and a grandparent, I have experienced that moment when you know for a fact that you're completely out of control. I mean, you've lost it. You've done everything that you can to rein them in, to get them to behave, to get them to stop whatever silliness they're up to, jumping off the bed, throwing things they're not supposed to, running back and forth across the street. Yeah, all of those things happen, especially when you raise boys. But there's always that moment that you know for a fact you're no longer in control of this circus. It has taken on a mind of its own. And I don't care at what level you lead. If you've ever had the moment that you know you just lost grip of this environment, you know for a fact that once you kind of let it go a little bit, you lose it completely. And once you lose it completely, it's nearly impossible to get it back. Nearly impossible to regain control once you've lost it. Politicians know that too. And that's why they fight so hard to hold on to power. And that's what we're going to talk about today on Leading Leaders. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. Now, I know you know that whether it's military, which I've been in the military, or it's a Fortune 50 company, which I've worked in a Fortune 50 company, or it's a small entrepreneurial gig, or even a contractor's gig, because I've worked in and led in all of those environments. I've led small restaurants. I've led small places like a mailboxes, etc. I've led retail establishments like the front end manager for an Albertsons. I've done all of those things. I've worked in corporate America in a big Fortune 50 company where I was, I think, 3 people from the CEO. I've been in all those places, and I've been in the military. And I've also run my own business for almost 20 years now. And in running my own business, I've had contractors who worked under me that I had to keep them going in the right direction. And in all of those roles, I know the same thing I said about families. And once it gets out of control, getting it back in control takes a lot of work. Once you lose the influence, once you lose the power to control the moment, you lose it sometimes permanently. I also know, though, that as an employee, if you surrender your power, your autonomy, your decision-making individuality for any period of time, once you've surrendered it for a moment, the odds that you'll ever get it back are, well, pretty close to 0. If you give up that parking space that's your favorite parking space because, well, you know, somebody else needed it more than me, tomorrow they're going to be in it. Yeah, and soon they'll have it painted as reserved, and you'll never get it back. If you give up the corner office because you're being kind, chances of you getting the corner offices back is pretty slim, almost 0. If you give up a right, an opportunity, a privilege, the chance that you're going to get that back is almost 0. Now, why do I bring that up? Well, it's a leadership principle that you need to know as a leader. If you take power from someone under the auspices that it's going to be temporary, that you're just helping them out, that you're just carrying the ball for now, in fairness, in propriety, you should give that power back to them at the moment that you no longer require it. Maybe you've seen the movies where a police officer commandeers someone's vehicle. They tell them to get out of it. In the name of the law, I need to use your vehicle. And they use that vehicle to chase the suspect. Well, what happens if that vehicle is destroyed in the chase? Who's responsible for that? Do you ever get your car back? Yet see, there are so many questions that follow along this path, and they don't all look like the boss and the employee, or the supervisor and the trainee. They don't all look like that, but there are a lot of scenarios where you have rights, you have privileges, you have power, and you surrender it temporarily to someone else, and you just never get it back. You never get it back, because once you've temporarily surrendered your power, your authority, your dominion over yourself, the odds that you'll get it back are, well, they're pretty slim. I was watching some Sky News reports today out of Australia, and one of the guys was talking about this new way of avoiding what they call the mini hotels, the mini COVID hotels, which is literally a hotel that they have converted into a temporary stay place. Now, they say it's a temporary stay. If you've been diagnosed and found to be positive with the disease, then they will relocate you to this mini hotel where you will stay for a period of 14 days or so to make sure that it comes out of your system before you go back into your own home or your own neighborhood or your own community and risk infecting someone else. But when you're in this mini hotel, the doors are locked and you can't leave. They bring your food and they set it outside the door on the ground, and you can't leave. In fact, if you even open the door before they've left the door, you could be in trouble and asked to stay, made to stay longer. So now that they've got this form of quarantine that's safer than you being at your home because they can't trust you to be at your home, they now have an option. If you don't want to go to the mini hotel, then you can put this tracking app on your body, in an injection or in your app on your phone that actually uses biometrics to track you. When do you leave the house? Did you leave the property? Did you go outside the door? It will make you check in using your own facial technology if you're using your phone to make sure that it knows that it's you. And it checks your temperature and all this other stuff, and it feeds all that information back to the government. Well, you don't have to go to a mini hotel if you have this app, but they do know everything that you're doing and what your body temperature is and what your heart rate is and what your blood pressure is and everything there is to know about you. So don't you dare be intimate with your spouse or think about going outside to mow the lawn. No, they will know. They will know. And again, we find ourselves in this place where you have the option. I mean, it's a choice, right? You can choose to go to the mini hotel for 2 weeks or 2 months or, until they say you can leave. Or you could choose to download the app on your device or put the little tracker thing in your arm and whatever you want to do. You have the choice. You have the option. Even if you're vaccinated, all of that still applies. Now, there's a whole lot of science that says that just as many people who have gone through that process, have made all those choices, have become ill as have not made those choices and become ill, but that's irrelevant. Look, here's the leadership principle in a nutshell. When you surrender your right to lead, when you surrender your right to make choices on your own, to influence the people around you, when you surrender that right to someone who declares that they can do it better than you, the odds that you'll ever get it back are zero. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't mean to submit to authority. There are times that we have to submit to authority. All good leaders are under someone's authority. All good leaders realize I don't make the final decision. And all good leaders are willing to say, I answer to someone and I will be held accountable. But when you reach the place where the people who are demanding the power refuse to be held accountable, you've left the world of leadership and you moved into the world of dictatorship or tyranny. If you're a leader and you lead like a dictator or a tyrant, if you lead by force, by manipulation, by taking away other people's individuality and power, shame on you. If you lead by influencing people to make responsible, powerful decisions on their own, and you empower them to make those decisions, and you give them the authority to make those decisions, kudos. That's the way you should lead. But know it for a fact, if you temporarily surrender the authority, the power, the autonomy that you possess on your own as a human being to anybody else, the odds of getting it back, pretty much zero. There's a huge difference between surrendering your authority, under authority, to be held accountable, and giving up the power that you have to make decisions on your own. All leaders should know the difference. Now, I can tell you, there was a time that my son, at the time 3 or 4 years old, he asked me, Dad, when you're doing Fun Time Live, do you ever have to yell, hey? Well, if you haven't noticed from this video, I have a pretty bold voice. I have a big voice, and because I was in choir most of my life and in drama most of my life, I've learned to project that voice when I need to. That was probably louder than the audio system could handle. But when I'm in a crowd of kids, and I feel like I'm losing control and they're not paying attention, and please don't do that and stop doing that, even just in my household with my own 4 kids and a few of their friends over, Sometimes I would just simply raise my voice and say, "Hey!" And after it echoed through the house and everything else went quiet, I would remind them that's not behavior we're going to accept. Well, there was a season in our life that we did kids events every single weekend, sometimes as many as 600 kids in one building, all between the ages of 8 and 14. And when I would be in the gym or on the dance floor and see somebody acting like a fool or about to do something really stupid, because usually that's predictable if you've been around kids at all, I would look into that crowd of 600 kids and I would raise my voice and yell, "Hey!" And about half the world would come to a stop and look to see who's he getting on to now. I didn't surrender my power in that environment, and I didn't ask them to surrender theirs, but I did exert who was in charge. As a leader, you may have to do that from time to time. You have to lift your voice, put your foot down, and make sure that those who are trying to steal your power know that you're not going to give it up easily. You may also have to make that declaration to let those that you lead know you're going to stand up with them and for them. Because if you're not willing to be vocal in a time that power is being stripped from individuals all over the world, then your silence is surrender. I'm not telling you to start a revolt. I am telling you better figure out what your boundaries are, figure out what your core values are, and begin now to voice your opinions, your ideas, and your individuality while you have the opportunity. The time may be coming that you don't. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, or Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.